So one of the things that I try to do, and we're trying to do at Future of Christendom, is say, okay, what are all the biblical principles and what's the biblical paradigm that we should operate from? And one of the things that's somewhat ironic is that those that would argue against our position as being too woodenly literal, we just want to take the Mosaic Law and plop it down on 21st century America. But the somewhat ironic thing is, I believe that the other positions that oppose us, aren't applying the biblical principles as it relates to civil justice, right? The Bible gives us the structure for civil justice. Judges adjudicating cases between a man and his neighbor. There must be an accuser. There must be one willing to cast the first stone. There must be 2 or 3 witnesses, right? The judge must make diligent inquiry into that case, right? These are the principles that we're trying to apply. And my question, one of my many, many questions for those that oppose this position is, what biblical principle are you applying that would cause someone to be punished who has not had a charge brought against them by an accuser, who has not had 2 or 3 witnesses who are willing to cast the first stone, who has not had a judge make diligent inquiry into his specific case, and yet hundreds and thousands and millions of people are fined and punished and all these things without any of those things happening with the justification being natural law reasoning. Well, the government is authorized to protect the people and serve the common good, and therefore we can reject all these biblical principles in order to achieve that principle, which is not explicit in Scripture. Again, we try to operate from the idea, and this is, I thought, fairly common among Christians, that we interpret the unclear with the clear. And what's clear in Scripture is that the magistrate exists to punish evildoers. Those who are loving God and loving neighbor and committing no evil should not be punished. Right? And in order for there to be a civil punishment, there must be diligent inquiry into that specific case. There must be an accuser. There must be witnesses. And the last time you had to pay some fine or registration, and if you didn't, you were threatened implicitly or explicitly. Where were any of those things? They weren't there. So we're trying to apply the biblical principles to every area of life. And I would just encourage those who reject our position. We welcome the arguments against it. We welcome the discussions. We welcome the debates. We invite we have many people on my show, on Luke's show, and we welcome more to come on and disagree with us and try to poke holes in our argumentation. But for the sake of our listeners, my listeners, people that might listen to your arguments, for those that you're trying to convince, please, please, please give the practical application, right? Give us the application. Wisdom is justified by her children. So I want to know, and everyday Christians who are trying to love God and love their neighbor, who want to know, what's the application of the system of civil justice that you are arguing for? Is the application that someone like Amos Miller, who's selling milk without a permit, is in the wrong? Is the application that if you're driving down the road 10 miles over the speed limit, that you are in sin?